So, okay. I guess I'll start the intro over. um, my name is Kayla Kirby, and I am the author of Souls of this Broken City. It is the first book in the Necklace series, and it is my debut novel. Hi, Amy. I'm currently sitting in a closet because it's the quietest place in the apartment right now. So, yeah. I'm going to read a little bit of the book here soon once a few more people show up. And yeah, do you guys have any questions for me that I can answer while we wait? Thanks to everyone who's showing up. That's really cool. I haven't ever done one of these before, really. So, yeah. Yeah, I can read it right now. Oh, you mean like the synopsis? Thank you. I am from Washington State. Um, yeah, I don't like Washington a whole lot, but the synopsis says, this is the book, by the way. I'm going to have it off screen when I'm reading, but this is the cover. That's the back. The synopsis says, Chase Thompson wants to live unseen by the world so he can be a protective force for his sister, only her and his best friend by his side. Blinded to the war raging on around them, the three friends focus on their lives as young teens while an uprising is growing between those in charge and those they rule over. In search for answers about their friend's brutal and mysterious death, Chase's world is turned upside down when he comes face to face with a shadow world hidden within his own. Facing enemies beyond human capabilities who have kidnapped his sister, can Chase gather allies and mount a rescue? The clock has started, and Chase's actions will shape the future. Can he make it to the light, or will he succumb to the darkness surrounding him? Oh, that's right. I totally forgot you were moving back, Megan. We had talked about that a little bit. Anyone else have any questions? No? What made me decide to start writing? Honestly, and this is probably one of the cheesiest answers, it was the Harry Potter books and J.K. Rowling. I was 8 when I first started reading them, and so it kind of just got my creativity going, and I started writing Harry Potter fan fiction, and it just kind of grew from there. So, and J.K. Rowling went through a lot in her life before she became who we all know her as, and so she has inspired me quite a bit with how she's overcome everything. So, yeah. Alright, I think I'm going to read a little bit from it now. I'm just going to read the prologue. So, yeah, thanks for everyone. Thanks to everyone for showing up and asking questions, and yeah. So, here's the prologue. Here's the prologue of Souls of this Broken City. No, it wasn't really all that hard. I mean, you already have a world and characters built, and you kind of just build off of that, um, pretty much like anything. I had a dream. I'd had it for as long as I could remember. I didn't know what it meant or even what emotions were behind it. Every morning when I woke up, it began to fade as soon as I opened my eyes. But it was the same dream every night. It wasn't happy or sad, but it had been a constant in my life. It was only now, as I fell through darkness, that I remembered it. It took place in a massive city. Everything was kind of dark and dull, devoid of color. Even the sky was bleak. It was cold, probably the middle of winter, and with every breath I took, I could see a faint cloud of white smoke leaving my mouth. I stood on a dock overlooking the dark gray ocean where the Statue of Liberty once towered above it. Ivy had crept up it, breaking it into splittering bits. Weeds ruled the land around it, and the head of Lady Liberty was on the sand, the water licking at it every so often. The smell of salt water from the ocean was faint, almost non-existent. The sea levels were down and everything smelt of oil. There was no beautiful sea life to be seen. I closed my eyes, and I could almost see the smiling faces of my best friend and my sister. They looked so real, almost like they were right next to me. But for some reason, I couldn't remember their names no matter how hard I tried. Suddenly, overcome with pain and emotion, I screamed out into the void over and over again. What were their names? What were their names? What were... A hand clasped my shoulder, and I opened my eyes and looked down at a boy who was standing beside me so suddenly. He couldn't have been more than 13. His skin was an ashen color, and he had violet eyes, reminding me of the sunrise on some distant island of the world. Dark, yet calming and beautiful, far too much so for someone of his kind. His rather long, stringy, and greasy-looking black hair hung over his eyes as he looked out over the ocean. When he spoke, his voice was smooth and quiet, like he was tired after a long day of work. I sniffled and wiped my face, taking a deep breath. I can't remember, I whispered to him. I can't remember their names. It happens when you're a soul, whispered the boy, unmoving and quiet. You forget a lot. It isn't your fault. It would make you feel worse if you did remember. Nothing can feel worse than this, I spoke softly, looking down at the dock beneath my feet. The boy did not reply, and we were silent for a long while. Finally, it was my companion who broke the silence, changing the topic and making me jump slightly as the heavy silence was broken. It's over, he said. I looked back at the ocean and nodded. It is. Have you figured out what this all means? The boy looked up at me when he spoke, but I couldn't bring myself to meet his gaze. I was silent for a second before sighing. Yes, I managed to whisper, feeling my stomach begin to squeeze itself and panic overwhelm me. The time had come. Are you ready? He asked, dropping his hand from my shoulder and taking a few steps forward toward the ocean. I shrugged. No, I said, but is anyone? The boy laughed dryly and traced a scar under his chin and down his throat. No, came his reply. They never really are. We were silent for a few seconds, just looking out at the ocean and our own little worlds. I swallowed heavily and licked my lips, a habit I had picked up at some point. What's it like? I asked quickly and quietly, afraid of the answer. The boy didn't respond for a while. I started to question whether he had heard me and was just about to repeat myself when he sighed, turning away from the ocean and back to me. He looked past me as he spoke. Hi, Courtney. Besides the physical pain, there's a sharp pain in your soul for just a split second. Then, there's nothing. He shrugged. At least that's how it was for me. It is different for everyone. I don't know what you will feel. You aren't dying per se, just falling, I finished for him. He nodded slowly, regretfully. Yes, he whispered, turning back to the ocean. Louder, he continued. You need to prepare yourself. What you are about to experience for the next few years will be like nothing you've ever experienced before. He looked at me then. His violet eyes met my gold ones. I felt the familiar shiver down my spine of two different creatures from two separate worlds and times meeting each other's gaze. I found myself wondering, not for the first time, if he felt it too. I had never had the courage to ask, and I wasn't planning to this time either. He isn't too kind to your type, he added. He wasn't kind to yours either, I pointed out. No, but imagine what he's going to do to you if he did all this to me. I couldn't respond. knowing he was right. Un didn't like me or my kind for that matter. He was going to be seeking revenge. Somewhere in the distance, a clock began to ring, covering the entire city in its sound. The boy looked at the pocket watch around his neck. He opened it before closing his eyes with a soft sigh, before snapping it shut once more with a soft click. He looked up at me, and I could see tears beginning to form. "It's time," he said. I looked back towards the ocean and noticed that the sky was starting to turn pink as the sun began to rise, chasing away the darkness. In a few hours, the city would be awake with no one knowing what was about to come. It was over for my friends and me, but for the rest of the world, it was just beginning. There was a jump, a large piece missing from the dream, something I wasn't supposed to know yet, something I was supposed to learn. It bothered me that I couldn't see it, that I couldn't know, but I guessed only time would tell. The dream returned. "I'm ready," I said. "Are you sure?" the boy asked, reaching for the watch around his neck once more. I shrugged and looked down. "As sure as I will be," I whispered, feeling a tightness in my chest once again as tears threatened to fall. "You don't want to talk to them first?" I scoffed and shook my head. "No, none of them would understand." The boy nodded sadly and began to sit down before I grabbed his arm, stopping him. He looked back at me. "Thank you for everything, Jimmy." Jimmy barely nodded, his own tears beginning to run down his cheeks. "I'll take care of them," he whispered, voice breaking. "I promise." I released his arm and looked back over the ocean to the rising sun, wanting to see it one last time and to feel at peace before I faced whatever was about to come. Jimmy sat down and opened his pocket watch, gently blowing on its face. I felt the warm blue glow of the stone in the center of my back. Then an intense power escaped with the light. I took the necklace from around my neck and looked at the shark charm one last time, running my thumb over it, hearing its soft humming. It sounded sad this time. The shark itself seemed to frown, and I inhaled deeply, taking in the sense of power and peace one last time. "Thank you," I whispered to it, hoping that whoever I was talking to could hear me from wherever they were. "Thank you for this chance. Thank you for this amazing adventure. Please look over my family, please protect them, and please guide them. Don't forget me." Then I clenched my fist around it, closed my eyes tight, and tossed it away from me. I opened my eyes again when I felt the power I had grown so used to rush out of me. I could hear something inside me sigh as it left. A soft wind began to blow, and I felt a warm presence around me like someone was hugging me from behind as I closed my eyes. "I will," a voice whispered against my ear. Then, along with the warm presence, it was gone. I opened my eyes once more, watching the sun, prepared for what was about to come. I heard Jimmy whispering to the watch, and the wind began to blow, differently than when the voice spoke. This one was cold. This one felt like evil was within it. It felt like needles against my skin. I felt a dark presence surround us, and the air becoming crisp and cold despite the sun rising. I took a deep breath, never removing my eyes from the sky. The ground around my feet began to turn red as blood bled through the wood of the dock, and the water began to rise, turning as red as blood. A dark, shadowy shape rose from the ground, standing nearly 7 feet tall. I could feel its hot breath on my neck, but I paid no attention. The shadow raised a single long claw and placed it upon my chest. I kept my eyes glued to the sky, watching it turn from black to orange to pink to blue as the sun chased away the darkness and all the stars. It was a new day, and as people got up for work, grumbling about having to go, they had no idea what the future held or the pain and suffering the souls had gone through for their sake and for the sake of the world. And, for the first time, I felt at peace with that thought. They didn't have to know right now. They would know someday, and that was good enough for me. A split second later, Jimmy fell silent and said, "Be safe, my friend." Before I could respond, I felt a sharp pain in the center of my soul, and I began falling, surrounded by darkness. I looked up and saw the sun finally reaching over the horizon. I half smiled and closed my eyes, knowing that my job was done. Flashes of people and words from conversations echoed around my head, but none of them made sense. All of it was jumbled and broken, another part I was not supposed to know yet, but would discover soon enough. Somewhere in the distance, an evil creature screamed and cursed me, warning me of the evil I was about to endure. And I said nothing. There was nothing else to say to it. I had done my job, and that was enough. I wouldn't give it the satisfaction of my reply. The next time he would hear me speak, I would be freed. It was the only then that I remembered the dream at that moment, because at that moment I was living it. I was falling and I wasn't sure about the pain and evil I was about to go through. I wasn't ready for it, but this was the purpose of my job, the purpose of my existence. Every memory came rushing back to me, and it felt like a giant hammer being slammed on my chest. I remembered names I had forgotten. I remembered faces that had been blurred. I remembered every place I went to, every detail to every lifetime I had faced, every smell that had ever touched my nose. The road was now paved for the future. No one in the city knew what they were about to face. No one in the world did. My job was over, and all I needed to do now was wait to be rescued. Jimmy would return for me. He had promised on the night we had become brothers. He had promised. And that damn demon never broke his promises, not even to an angel. So that was the prologue. Sorry about the stuttering and stuff. I am really nervous reading out loud. Oh, thank you, AC. Maybe. I'll think about doing that. Thank you, Courtney. I'm really glad you enjoyed it, and I hope everyone who does read it enjoys it as well. Well, does anyone have any questions about who I am as the author, about the book, or anything that I can answer before I have to go? Yeah, some of the people that I've reviewed have been amazing. I like a lot of the reviews that I've read for it. So, and I try to respond to them, at least on Goodreads, all the time. So, a little bit about the influences behind Souls. Souls of this Broken City actually came to me when my friend got back from vacation, and she brought me a necklace, right? And the necklace had a shark charm on it, and the entire story just flooded my head, and I started writing it that night, and at 8 years old it was really bad, but it's grown since then and has become a lot more complex and things like that. So yeah, it all stemmed from a little present that a childhood friend gave to me. So besides that, a lot of the elements and things have been struggles I've gone through or struggles I see inside the world that I'm trying to bring more awareness to and try to break some taboo subjects, I even have a disclaimer page at the beginning of the book that is basically saying, hey, this book deals with stuff that may be triggering or upsetting to some readers because I'm trying to break the taboo system, So, oh, do I have a favorite character that's like a baby in my book? My book baby? That's so... Okay, so Robert is one of them. I will say that now. Robert is probably one of my book babies, to be perfectly honest. Another one is Jimmy. He was in the prologue. And yeah, I have a special connection to Jimmy. And probably BS, because he has a lot of my humor. So, he and I are... Yeah. Some of the stuff he says is stuff that I would say, and he's very sarcastic, so. Any other questions? Yeah, Jimmy's pretty cool. I'm so glad that I get to write him now. What time of day do I do my best writing? Probably nighttime, because that's when my toddler is asleep. So that's around the time that I would sit down and write. Writing ritual? Kind of. Uh, I normally sit on the bed with the laptop on my lap and try not to go on Facebook, but fail at that, and so I get distracted by Facebook, and then I end up typing for a while and try to get at least a chapter done a night. So, but Facebook kind of disturbs that from time to time. So, yeah. By the way, I have to say this, the cover, right? Front and back was done by Courtney. So anyone that ever needs a cover or editing or formatting should totally go to her because she is amazing. And yeah. How do I find writing with my partner? Oh boy, how do I find how's writing with Tom? Oh, my phone's going to die soon. It has its ups and downs, to be perfectly honest, but it's a lot of fun, you know. Um, the book that he and I are working on is called Tilly, and it is supposed to bring awareness to sex trafficking, but it also has mystery elements and stuff in it. So it's really fun to write with him, but it's also very frustrating sometimes, if that makes sense. Um, but we're pretty much on the same page. It's just finding out who's writing what and who's doing what, and me teaching him things that I've learned from writing and publishing Souls. So, yeah. Alright, if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and ask them. Um, and I will answer them in the comments, but my phone's about to die, and so I gotta go for now. Thank you for having me here and for tuning in, and I look forward to doing it again. Have a wonderful day.